Let us now get into the panel. Let's navigate the new executive order and the sector reforms in Nigeria. To begin that conversation, let me welcome first our panel moderator. Partner at McKinsey and Company, Oliver Onyekweli. You are welcome, Oliver. Joining Oliver to have this conversation is VP of Business Development Africa for NOV, Arthur Yaneme. Joining them is Country Director for SLB, Dr. Nosal Moriodon, FNAPE. You are welcome. Here also is Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of NLNG, Dr. Michelle Bila. He's on the panel. Also on the panel is Executive Director of Oando PLC and MD of Oando Energy Resources, Dr. Ainoje Alex Irune. You are welcome. On the panel, Chief Executive Officer, Meren Energy, welcome. Roger Talker, you welcome. Chairman, Managing Director of Chevron Nigerian Mid-Africa Business Unit is here on the panel. Jim Swaz, you are welcome. Completing the list of our speakers on this panel is Executive Vice President Upstream for NNPC Limited. Welcome, Mr. Odi Ntia.
Morning, everybody. Welcome to Africa Energy Week 2025. We've got an exciting panel this morning. We're going to be talking about investing in Nigeria, focusing on navigating the new executive orders and sector reforms. But we're also blessed, we're grateful. It's Nigeria's Independence Day, so we've got our Nigerian compatriots here on the panel. Thank God for that. I'm glad you're here. So, several months ago, President Tinubu introduced a set of executive orders, and they were aimed at catalyzing investment, removing bottlenecks, just making Nigeria a more competitive destination and a more efficient energy market. At the same time, as we know, the global energy transition has been, applying pressure. We have also regional demand growth and the need for energy security, and that creates both opportunity and urgency. So we've got a great panel. We've got a distinguished panel here this morning, ladies and gentlemen, bringing together leaders from the NNPC, from the IOCs, from the Indigenous companies, the independents, as well as the service providers. And, the reality is reform only matters if it is felt across the full ecosystem. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So, we've heard a lot about these executive orders, lots of news. And so I'd like to start the conversation today by exploring how those reforms are reshaping strategies and competitiveness in Nigeria amongst the NOCs and the majors. So we're going to start with the NOCs and the majors. And to get us going, EVP, I'd like to start with you. Can you give us a little bit of a picture of how NNPC is adapting its upstream strategy under the executive orders? And what signals should partners look for that NNPC is evolving its approach?
Thanks, Olivia. Appreciate it. Adaptation and signals. We're looking at a number of things where we're fashioning the PSC model, looking to see how we can, ensure we adapt all the executive order elements into its speedy approvals, cost efficiency, the NCDMB requirement for local content, ensuring we can capture those in the new PSCs and the benefits of them. We've been working with the regulators, NUPRC, to get that model PSA out. As a matter of fact, I think it's almost done, if not done already. The first signal out of that was 2 weeks ago. The regulators and NNPC, along with Total, signed off on that model PSC. So that's working okay, and we think it's going to really, really push things along as we go forward. We're looking at getting more engaged with PSCs, co-investing as well. We're going to be sharing both capital and the risk elements of projects, looking to have NNPC more engaged, not just being a dormant JV operator, but getting engaged in that space as well. The Honorable Minister mentioned yesterday he would like to see Nigerian companies, NNPC, go out to African countries, take up opportunities, in exploration, in production. We need to build capacity to be able to do that, and we're really working towards that. So, not just be a national player, but also a continental player in that space as well. So looking forward from a signal standpoint, rolling out PSC models. That is almost done, if not done already. A huge signal there will be how we speed up approvals for projects, and I think we have a couple of them in the pipeline right now that will really tell. We're reorganizing NNPC and moving along at the same time, seeing how we can move things a bit faster. I've been in the company now for 9 to 10 months. Very interesting. We looking to see how we can be a little bit more nimble. Shed a bit of weight. We have too much fat from a cost profile standpoint, and as we become more nimble, it's going to be very evident, to everybody as we transact business with our joint venture partners. Most of them are here. I told them earlier when I smile, they'll be able to know that things have changed. But in real terms, the real change will be speedy approvals, how nimble we are, getting things done as quickly as possible, reducing costs, and positioning ourselves like they have noticed that there have been side letters going on to redraft the PSCs, and the JOAs, PSCs, and all that to make sure we incorporate all the elements of the executive orders in there. So I do think, going forward, things will be a little bit very well for everybody, all players, new players, old players in the fray. New opportunities have been rolled out as well, new bid rounds, just good things galore.
No, thank you for that. And I love the point around nimbleness. We talk about the model contracts and starting to see the evidence from, the Total project that you talked about. I want to, and that's the NOC view and NNPC view. I want to bring you in, Jim, now, if you don't mind. And just from where you sit, how do you assess the oil and gas sector reforms in Nigeria? And what do you think are the key challenges that are still faced by operators?
Yeah, thanks for that, Oliver. And good morning, everyone. And on behalf of Chevron Nigeria, very happy to be here and happy Independence Day. I think it's important to recognize 65 years now of independence today. And as an entity in Nigeria, Chevron's been here for almost that entire period. So we have a long history of working in Nigeria with our partners and the government for a long time. I think in terms of the question, I look at it through both tangible and intangibles. So from the tangible side, the PIA in 2021 was a critical shift that provided a signal that business was going to be different in Nigeria. We had certainty on how terms would be handled, and some of those are also improved. Because you think about our business, we take a lot of risks. We take risks in the subsurface. We take risks on cost. We take risks on schedule. We take risks on returns. And so the more fundamental consistency that we get, the better off we are. And so the PIA certainly did that. And as one of the actions we took is we actually converted all of our leases. We still maintain operations in the shallow water, in the swamp, as well as deep water. And so we took the opportunity to go ahead and convert those at that time. And then building upon that, I think the presidential directives were further builds of helping us to figure out ways to unlock the opportunities. And so definitely the reforms in contracting, in the terms, and some of these other things were another critical tangible signal that things were going to be different in Nigeria. And I think the intangible part, though, is just what my colleague Udi was talking about, is the collaborative spirit. And I think that's been a fundamental change from NNPCL, which is very much appreciated how we work things together. NCDMB, just the previous speaker was talking about the collaborative spirit. That, yes, we see that. We actually see very different thing, and really across the government, a desire to figure out how we can work this together. So I think, and that's a critical piece of this. It's one thing to change rules. It's a different thing to actually act differently. I think the challenge side of this, though, will be to sustain all of those, right? So we talk about the PIA. So sustaining and maintaining the sanctity of that law is very critical, because again, it goes back to us wanting to know that when we invest and we're looking at returns of maybe 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, that we still operate under the same rule set because of the risk we take in the other areas. So I think maintaining the sanctity of that. I think the implementation of the presidential directives, there's still some work that goes to go on there with that. But again, I thank NNPCL most recently for the raising the contracting threshold, which has really helped simplify and speed up the work with that. I think some of the presidential directives, there's some limitations to them. And so I think maybe some revisits on some of those that could help expand it for different deep water oil and also non-associated gas terms would be beneficial. And then the last piece I would say is on the sanctity of contract is, again, just watching for erosion of the PIA terms. And we've seen some concerns in the Nigeria Tax Act that was recently rolled out, where there's some things that are maybe not aligned with what the PIA had laid out, and some areas that we're working with the government on. So I think that's going to be the challenge, right? It's sticking to a set of consistent rules and regulations, and then also continuing to look for ways to be more predictable in terms of competitiveness of cost and schedule.
Yeah.
So thank you.
No, thanks for that, Jim. I think very powerful messages. I really love this notion of collaboration, and it's come up a couple times throughout the discussion over the last few days. Is how do we sort of work together, NNPC, the IOCs, others, to de-risk the basin? I want to bring in. So I think we've talked about competitiveness a little bit. I want to switch gears. I want to look at opportunities and portfolios, and I want to bring in our friends from the LNG business. I want to bring in our Indigenous operators and the independents. Philip, I'm going to start with you, if you would oblige. How would you say Nigerian reforms position NLNG? And I want you to think about this in the context. We're in an increasingly competitive, we've got Qatar, we've got the US, we've got projects in East Africa coming up that folks are talking about. How do you see the reforms positioning NLNG in that context?
Thanks. I think, first of all, happy independence to everybody. And a lot's been said about some of the key steps that the government has taken recently. I would group them as three key things, right? There's the PIA, the presidential directives, and the Nigerian Tax Act. Yeah. Those are probably the three key levers the government has used to try and create that enabling environment for investment. A lot has been said on the PIA and how that has really progressed things forward. It's not perfect, yeah, and I'm glad to know that there is an ongoing review of that PIA, and I think that's a necessary review, and there are various things that need to be looked into, and I hope that that takes place in a very collaborative manner with industry as well. The presidential directives, I would say, have mostly been very positive, mm-hmm, and on the back of that, we have seen FIDs take place. So the Ubeta FID, for example, which is going to supply gas to us that we desperately need, is an example of that. The Nigerian Tax Act is the most recent, and in my view, that's a mixed bucket. Okay. Where there's been a lot of positive steps that have been taken, simplifying, the tax code and things like that. But from our perspective, it's been giving with one hand and taking with the other hand. Okay. And so I think that it is absolutely critical that the act is reviewed before it goes into implementation in January. Just to give you an example, just one single clause there that deals with the fossil fuel surcharge, 5% surcharge on fossil fuels. It's excluded LPG and CNG, but it's not excluded LNG. That alone would cost my business $250 million a year. Wow. Okay. Out of the blue, yeah, completely unplanned. Yeah. And so if you want to talk about predictability, stability, and so on and so forth, that's the sort of thing that you need. Now, if I take a step back and look at our business as a whole, as you know, we took FID on Train 7 in 2019. And that's on the back of significant collaboration and very positive support, from all of the various government agencies, NCDMB, the regulators, upstream, midstream, and so on and so forth. They're extremely positive. And we were able to launch that project despite COVID. We've progressed it. We're now over 80% completion in terms of construction and making good progress on it. However, we've also seen, again, in the tax code, a number of clauses there that target LNG operators specifically. So again, for example, we're the only ones that are now expected to pay our taxes monthly instead of annually like everybody else, right? That has a cash flow implication, for us as a business, and there are a number of capital gains tax, a number of examples of other things that have emerged as well that need to be looked at. But from a competitive point of view, if you look at what's happening in the US, maybe I'll start with Qatar. Qatar is it's a simple governance and fiscal environment where they make decisions. Sometimes it's one person who makes the decision, it gets implemented, and it's fairly simple. But look at the US, that's a bit more complex. They have managed to actually just drive and enable investment over the last couple of years that has facilitated the sort of phenomenal growth that we've seen. Now, for us to compete with these two countries as examples is what the real competition is. And so we started producing LNG just about the same time with Qatar. They're now looking at 140 plus million ton per annum aspiration in another 2 years or so. We're hoping that by then we'll hit 30. We actually have the resources, 3-4 times that. And so there is further work to be done in ensuring that we're able particularly to unlock the upstream. And so that upstream investment, because the resources are there, is critical to driving everything else that we do in the midstream, whether it's LNG, whether it's petrochemicals, or whatever else, pipelines to everywhere, whether it's Morocco or Algeria, or, they all depend on what you're able to unlock in the upstream. I would very much like to kick off my Train 8 and 9 projects now. The key thing that's holding us back is line of sight to the gas supply in the upstream.
Yeah. Thanks, Philip. I mean, what a powerful, just visual example. This, 140 MTPA versus the 30 that we're striving for. And I think the points you've raised around erosion and sort of taking a holistic view, not just of the PIA, but of the tax bill for the overall competitive, I think that's a bit thematic. That's come through a couple times. I'd like to, and now that we've heard from the LNG side, I want to turn to you, Alex, and just get the view from the Indigenous players. How do these reforms level the playing field between Indigenous operators and the majors, from your point of view?
Good, thanks, Oliver. Happy Independence Day. I just on a side note, I think Philip has really upset someone in FIRs.
Me too.
It feels like the tax law was written to upset you. But that said, I think the reforms have been extremely effective on paper. In reality, what we have seen has been a reconstitution of the operating model for the upstream businesses in Nigeria. What do I mean by that? Prior to now, what we saw was a regulator that was more of a, a bit of a, less of a business partner. An NNPC that was a bit more focused on competition and independence that were focused on individualism. So you build your own company, you do what you need to do to survive. And I think that has changed. So what has happened is we've seen a regulator that is more of a business partner, a ministry led by, on the gas and the oil side, by distinguished gentlemen that understand where the country should be. and are trying to get us there as best as they can. An NNPC that has evolved into a more efficient, at least certainly more collaborative partnership with its JV partners, which in turn, and it's always the case when you have the largest producer, the largest operator acting appropriately, everyone else then falls in line. And what it's meant is a lot of the executive orders that have come out, where possible, we've been able to enhance the work we do. I'll give an example. The limits that have recently been moved to allow JV operations fund their operations without the requisite approval levels that have to go right up to the top have been significantly improved on the JV interaction side, but we still have some lag and issues with the NCDMB component of that. We have to fix that. So a lot of the orders that have come through, and I can give another example about procurement. The order anticipates there's a coordinator for that process, but in real terms, there isn't. We all have to lean in and do what we must do to ensure the order is achieved. So that work is being done both by NNPC ourselves and the relevant NCDMB and everyone else. So there's a lot of work to be done. But I say this to make the point that Nigeria has never been void of laws, rules, policies, or regulations. The intention of our people to realize a Qatar, to realize an Emirates, to realize a Singapore together has been the issue. And dare I say, for the first time in the oil and gas sector in Nigeria, we get it. I think in 2018 and 2022, just after COVID, I think we hit new lows of 600,000 barrels of production a day.
Yeah.
And it was clear to everyone, we will sink as a country, not as an industry. And I think since then, we've sort of rearranged our mindsets, understand what we have to do with security. We've produced for almost 4 months without any incursion. That's something that we thought could never happen. So for me, it's more the mindset shift that has happened. And I mean, I'm glad it's happened now. But there is a lot to be said for how we take the PIA, the executive orders, and we then materialize that in real terms for all our benefits. But I guess now we have it in place. We have the team and the family or business that will bring it to fruition together.
Yeah. No, I like that. I think so. What I'm hearing is the mindset is now there. It's there. There's a bit of a unification around the critical direction, but it's about getting those sort of formalized pieces to make it, really stick is kind of where we need to focus. I want to bring Roger. I want to bring you into this conversation now. And I'd like to get a sense from you if these reforms have created a meaningful opportunity or opening for independents like yourselves to acquire additional positions, assets, and how it's impacted your financing capacity.
Thanks, Oliver. So we, Merrin, are a little bit different from the rest of the panel because we're a relatively small, independent but listed E&P company. We're listed in Toronto and in Stockholm. And as such, we talk to investors across the world, investment funds. And as anyone knows, there's hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars invested in listed oil companies. We're rather unusual, though, in that we're a bit of a standard bearer for Nigeria because all our cash flow comes from the Nigerian operations, which are with Chevron and with Total. And the orders and the pace of doing business in Nigeria has significantly helped in the conversations that we have with the investment community around the world. I think when we started this sort of adventure off a couple of years ago, there was a perceived sort of perception, if you like, of Nigeria as being slow-moving, very bureaucratic. But we are detecting a change. And so the orders and the changes that have taken place in Nigeria are, I believe, elevating it in terms of being able to access investment firms to come in and support companies like us. In terms of financing and debt, we actually have no issue with that. We have a huge RBL in place, which actually we are in the process of potentially refinancing, and I can promise you there is a oversupply of people wanting to invest in that facility. The European banks have less, but they have been more than replaced by other nations wanting to invest. So we're very encouraged by the changes. It's made our investment climate easier for us, but there are still things to do.
Isn't that a wonderful message? As I spoke to Roger before the panel, guys, there's excitement about our nation. You know, financiers are starting to come and look at what we're doing. They're seeing the reforms, they're seeing the change, right? I think that's a wonderful message, but I think it's also for us then to make sure we execute and deliver. And I want to take the conversation in that direction now, around efficiency and delivery. And for that, I want to bring in our friends from the service companies, and I'll start, Arthur, I want to start with you, if you don't mind. From your view, do the reforms that we've seen address the systemic bottlenecks that have slowed service providers down in the past, from where you sit?
Thanks, moderator, for allowing me to speak. And happy Independence Day to everybody. So I stand here for NOV, and so NOV is a tech company. We are an OEM, we manufacture equipment, and some of the equipment is very advanced and maybe have not been in the past used in country. So what we have noticed is that for us to bring these technologies in country, we require approvals. But in the past, we've witnessed some very bureaucratic delays and hurdles that we had to cross. But I have to recognize that nowadays we see significant improvements, which are really encouraging. And I have a few examples for that, supporting some local players in Nigeria, where we are able today to provide loading systems for the export terminals. And in the past, these has taken more than 2 years to get approved. But with this new team in place, it took a few months for the system to approve the technology to be used in country. So, which is really a great milestone. And I can go on with other examples. I mean, these allow us today to also equip drilling rigs with our technologies that enable automation and all the other nice stuff that enable remote support, because you don't only have you don't always have the expertise in country.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to tap into resources that you have sitting outside of the country to support the operations, and this is very helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So there, go ahead.
Yeah, there's one last point that I wanted to mention. Somebody highlighted predictability. So we hear a lot about capital that is competing, right? So we're competing, projects in Nigeria are competing with projects in other places. And when you have delays in approvals and all these things, maybe capital go elsewhere. So for us, suppliers, it's the same thing. We have supply chains that have to manufacture some of the equipment, some of the technologies. Some are very, very long lead items. But if we don't have visibility, it doesn't allow us to plan properly. And hence, maybe we miss the opportunity to bring the technology where it's needed in Africa, where we need the most, and it goes elsewhere. So it's really beneficial to see things that have been put in place that are helping us today to move forward in supporting our clients in Nigeria. That's what I'm about to say.
No, that's great. And I mean, we need that support here, at home in Nigeria. And it sounds like you're seeing some of those green shoots faster, some things moving a bit faster. But then at the same time, I heard something that I thought was interesting, is that we also need to think a bit differently sometimes when we think about the required technologies and services and skills, some of them maybe we should look outside for some. So I think that's a fair point.
Yeah.
I want to know, so this is a great moment. I want to bring you into this because I think we've heard now from Arthur, from where you sit, from your vantage point, what are the critical steps that you think the industry is going to have to take to ensure the executive orders that we've been talking about actually translate into faster project delivery?
Thank you. Again, let me join the others by first saying happy independence to Nigeria. So we're here to talk about invest in Nigeria. And I want to make it clear to everybody. The word perfection exists only in illusion. Perfection exists only in illusion. One thing we must acknowledge is we're in a better place than we were some few years ago.
Sure.
The industry was in a stagnation. We needed PIA. PIA came. And the PIA didn't provide enough clarity. Then the executive order came as a means to accelerate the realization of fast tracking our race to make up for almost 10 years of stagnation. And where I see it as a service provider, privileged to be running the biggest service company in the world in Nigeria, I can say the difference is clear like night and day. So what we need to do as an industry is to try as much as possible to take advantage of the route that's been provided by the executive order, which is what we are talking about here, because we're talking about invest in Nigeria. And your question is, how has the executive order accelerated investment? It has, in the sense that it's provided a pathway to address some of the concerns raised by the PIA, and in the process, instilling confidence in the system. Some of the few words that have referenced that have been made, I've heard people talk about the contracting cycle. That was pretty critical, enabled by the executive order, raising the ceilings for payment, executive order. And as a service company, what are we doing? I mean, as a service company, what we are doing to complement all these efforts is try to ensure that the best-in-class technology available to accelerate this pace, to increase production, because here we're talking about the government and investors and companies like us. Government's objective is to optimize value on its assets. As we want to optimize returns on our investments. And to do that, we need a pathway to the opportunities. So we need whatever it takes to bring the opportunity to the table, to come to the table. The opportunity comes, we in return, we try as much as possible to deploy the best-in-class technology in the areas of production enhancement, things like well intervention, that will help accelerate this oil to come to the ground on time. We equally try as much as possible to recognize the fact that much has been said about capacity. Collaborate with the operators, collaborate with the industry, collaborate with everybody to try and ensure that the best practices we've seen elsewhere can be replicated right here in Nigeria. It's been 10 years or 15 years of no activity. So we're trying to play catch up to try as much as possible to see how you can bring infrastructures that have been literally moribund, not doing anything, assets that have been dead, to bring them fast to life.
Yeah. No, thanks for that. I mean, I think you set the burning plate on the table that we've lost time. We don't have any more time to lose. But I also hear, projects need to come forward for you all you need to see line of sight to projects. And of course, that's critical.
Absolutely.
So I think it's been good talking about delivery and efficiency. And I think as we get to sort of the last part of the discussion, we'll do a quick round here. I want to switch to the themes of partnership, ESG, and resilience. And I'll just go around quickly for the folks in the room. Look, execution matters, but partnerships and sustainability are going to define long-term success. And I just want to close with this. And the first question, actually, I'll just put it to Jim. Jim, if you don't mind. How is Chevron Nigeria adapting its upstream business model to unlock future opportunities?
If you look at sort of the last decade, as Nosa just mentioned, there's really been no big projects that we've done. Our focus has been on short cycle infill drilling. And so as we think about a shift towards increasing exploration, developing new resources that haven't been developed, it does require a different approach. And so in parallel, Chevron's also doing a fundamental change in how we run our business, and with more centralization.
Okay.
So in the instance of for our Nigeria, Mid-Africa business, it's part of a broader offshore business for Chevron now. And we have our more functional centralization. What that does for us, though, the advantage is we're now able to leverage the resources more effectively from our central groups, whether it's in the capital projects or in our wells or other areas. And so that's been one of the fundamental shifts, try to do this faster and more effective. And then also really taking a focus on exploration and in maybe three different areas there. One is in our shallow water fields, we continue to further delineate additional resources in the shallow water. In the deep water, we want to do some exploration and continue to work in those areas, and then also more seismic. So we really see this as sort of a multifold approach of we continue to do the infill and near-term kind of shorter cycle work, and then also invest in discovered resources that have been undeveloped. And then the third piece of that is an exploration platform that'll take us into the next 10, 15, 20 years in Nigeria.
Yeah, no, thanks, Jim. So it's for you, resiliency is about setting up the business, trying to centralize certain things so that you're fit for purpose to attack some of these opportunities you see. Thanks for that. I want to then pivot, maybe EVP, right? From your side, the NNPC side, looking ahead, what partnership structures does NNPC see as most effective in driving upstream investment? And that could be whether through JVs, PSCs, co-investment. What do you see?
Thanks, Oliver. Excuse me. Thank you. Happy Independence, by the way. I think I missed that in my first go around. I don't want to major in the minors here, but just looking at the mandates set for us by our shareholders, the Ministry of Petroleum and the Ministry of Finance, 2 million barrels by 2027, 3 million barrels by 2030. When we set out into 2025, we started with about 1.4 million barrels. As of last month, we edged around 1.6 average and all. September has been a lot of turnaround maintenance here and there, deferred maintenance. But we do think we're going to end the year at about 1.9, right? That's about 100,000 barrels shy of the 2 million barrels we're supposed to hit in 2027. It's the existing models that have helped us do that. All these guys here, the different models, the PSCs, the JVs. In the NEPL space, we've got AMTs, we've got JPMTs, we've got FTSs, all kinds of models going on, all of them do work. Can we better refine them? Absolutely. NNPC is going to be looking at going into co-investments. Like I mentioned earlier, we're going to be willing to share risk and capital as well. The noise in the past around NNPC not being able to pay cash call, and a lot of people have taken that to mean NNPC is broken all it. We've sunset all that narrative. It's all in the past, right? Every month I meet with all the leaders here, all the upstream leaders. And we go through the JV cash calls. How are we doing? Who's paying and who's not paying? And it's a renaissance there to see what exactly is happening in that space in terms of who is catching up, who's doing well, And we really expect everybody to do well, and they are. So growing from 1.4 to 1.6 to we reached high of 1.8 in September, by the way, on a best day basis, and we think we're going to end at 1.9. Takes a lot of money. That's a lot of capital, a lot of money, And the models have helped us, the JV models, the PSC models, all the other models have really helped. So to single out one particular model, PSCs are good because it keeps us away from expending capital. We can focus and deploy our capital into other areas. JV models are also good. I mean, everybody, you pitch in per your interests, and you pick up per your interests as well from a lifting standpoint, all of them will work going forward. So on a case-by-case basis, we're going to be looking at which one is going to be best fit for this project, for this opportunity we have, and we will apply and deploy at the same time. You know, whichever is best for the contractor and is good for NNPC as well. You know, like I tell my business partners, I look for win-win solutions and spaces. You know, any company that comes with a win-win mindset, you know, gets my name. Very easy. So the best thing you want to do is grow the size of the pie. So 1% of a bigger pie is always going to be better than 10% of a small pie, right? So just grow the pie.
Yeah.
Make sure we can bring our costs down. I'm very, very cost disciplined, just by way of my background, you know. I like lean and mean opportunities, and then you grow the production, and everybody's happy once we play by the rules of the regulation, you know, government policies and all, you know. So all models are good. It's always going to be on a case-by-case basis, which one works for the partner and for NNPC as well. And I think so far so good. It's been working well. I'm really proud to say I'm very comfortable with my partners. They're putting wood on wood pile, which is what everybody expects of them. And the government as well is getting the reward for trusting us to manage their resources and their assets on their behalf. So yeah, I would say let's keep playing on a case by case basis.
Yeah, and I love what you just said about this mindset of growing the pie. I think that's, and you know, you see it, and the numbers are not small numbers. There was a time when we talked of 2 million, and people, how are we going to do it? Well, we're getting close, and I think that's the proof is in the pudding. So that's great to hear. I want to now move a little bit in the few minutes we have left here. Maybe we'll just go quickly on the ESG side. Alex, I'll start with you. You know, I want to understand from your perspective, what role can Indigenous operators play in deepening domestic gas use, energy access, beyond just exports?
Thanks for that. I think that question sort of sits at the heart of why we're involved in this space.
Yeah.
If I think to say that if the IOCs had made that a focus, we'll probably have gas to your home in Nigeria at the moment. But it's fair game. The investment was done by them, and molecules went to their homes, which is fine. Now we're indigenous players stepping into this space. A priority for us must be to improve the lot of our people in Nigeria and the continent, right? And I think that as a first principle sets the tone for how we evolve. As a company, we came from a downstream company, built a downstream business with a midstream interest. I think besides NNPC, we've probably built the largest kilometer worth of pipelines across the country through Oando Gas and Power, which is now Accela. And what that does for us is we already understand that construct of taking gas to industry, taking gas to homes. And if you look at a lot of the other indigenous producers, whether it's ND Western, whether it's Aradel, a lot of them have a very localized or country-centric model where there is revenue from exports, but there's a certain focus on ensuring that there's local delivery of molecules, whether it's diesel, LPG, or CNG, and the Greenville case. Now, when you take all of that into consideration, I think that the direct answer to your question is only a matter of time, because it is a priority for us. We do have some work to do on the policy side, on the willing buyer, willing seller, which is improving. But we do have some considerations and conversations to have around, you know, the cost of a molecule of gas and where it's going, and how we share the upside of that. So, broadly speaking, I think we as Indigenous people see it as a first call, and we certainly have it as a mandate. The other element is that a lot of the Indigenous oil and gas players are looking at the renewable space. And we, as you know, have Oando Clean Energy, which is looking at a huge renewable portfolio and bringing not just the gas and molecules from the upstream, but alternative sources of power to ensure industrialization for the country. So I think that space is going to be exciting over the next 3 to 5 years.
It's a mission-driven space for the Indigenous.
It is certainly a mission-driven.
Yeah. Okay. We're running a little low on time, but I do want to make sure we give kind of last couple of words. So, Philip, maybe we'll go quick from your perspective. If you think about gas, we've heard the sort of gas perspective from Oando internally facing. If you think about gas from your view, what infrastructure gaps still exist, and what needs to be done to free up those gas molecules so that we also have for export?
No, thanks. I think you always have to look at gas from a value chain perspective, right? And so I start from the upstream, and it's really about, we've done a lot with the onshore and the shallow water, and some of the presidential directives have really helped to progress that. So kudos on that front. We have to unlock the deep water. If we don't unlock the deep water, we cannot expand NLNG. We cannot grow any greenfield LNG projects. We will not be able to fill projects like the Atlantic Pipeline and so on and so forth. So we have to unlock the deep water gas. One of the presidential directives was aimed at that, but when I speak to some of the operators, what they say is, great start, but not good enough. More has to be done to unlock deep water gas. So that's on the upstream side. On the midstream side, again, I'm going to step back from NLNG and take a broader perspective. If you look at domestic, right, the infrastructure connections. So there are a number of projects underway that need to be finished because they're critical, whether it's crossing the River Niger, whether it's the AKK and so on. Those need to be completed. And then we need to look at wider distribution, getting the gas where it needs to go. I think CNG has played a really important role in terms of a virtual pipeline to bridge the gap where infrastructure, physical infrastructure does not exist. And so that's helped a long way. Domestic LNG is emerging more and more. We have some, but we can grow that, and that will help as well, because it's not everywhere that a pipeline makes sense.
Yeah.
And where that's the case, LNG could do that, CNG could do that, and further develop. Now, if you then take a look at the export business, as I said earlier, there's so much more that Nigeria could do, right? I would like to be talking about train 8 and 9. And
God willing.
Some of the conversations we've had with the group CEO of NNPC have been focused on that. But we have to unlock the supplies to enable that. Aside from that is LPG. That for us is a key focus in the domestic, because helping to build a better Nigeria remains a key focus for us. And so how do we unlock things like LPG, cooking gas, displacing firewood and kerosene, and that brings with it both environmental,
ESG benefits,
health, and other ESG benefits that I think are just a multiplier effect in what they could do within the domestic economy as well.
No, I think a powerful call to action. Organizers are begging for time, but we're doing God's work up here. We need to make sure we give. Sorry, guys, we're going to give everybody a chance. We're going to give everybody a chance. It's important stuff. We're going to get the gas. We're going to get the oil. So, last 30 seconds, I want to have Roger, I want to have Anosa, and I want to have Arthur. If you had to sort of, in the last 30 seconds, give your view on what success looks like for Nigeria's oil and gas sector, what would it be? In just 30 seconds.
I said that there was a missing, and that I will give you the missing. A tremendous opportunity is being created here, and there's a willingness to invest. And forgive me from the service space, the one problem is it is expensive operating in Nigeria because of lack of competition in the service space, and that will come. It will get fixed, but that is a big hold in holding things back, and that needs to be the next focus on bringing back the service companies that were in Nigeria 10, 15 years ago. And that would be my last remark.
So we want you back. We want everybody back. You guys are here. We want more. Okay, thanks. Go ahead.
So what's been successful in Nigeria? Which brings a theme. SLB is one. We locked the first well in Nigeria. Decades after, we're still here investing more. No plans to go anywhere.
Thank God. Yeah.
Just if you listen to our conversation yesterday, it was said that over 80% or 7% of the world's production comes from matured fields. And you have that in abundance in Nigeria. The last licensing rounds have proven that, because you've seen these marginal fields up within such a short period of time, bringing crude to the surface. That's an example of what you can achieve with matured fields. Okay. And lastly, I don't know of many countries that have as many petroliferous basins as you have in Nigeria. It's not just Niger Delta. We've got Dahomey Basin coming up. Anambra Basin is there. Benue Basin is there. Chad Basin is there. Sokoto Basin is there. They're all petroliferous basins. But right now we're focusing a lot on Niger Delta. And Dahomey Basin is a place to go as well. If you want to talk more about this, just see me at SLB booths. Thank you.
Thank you. And the last word, Arthur.
Yeah, from an NOV perspective, as I said earlier, we are a tech company and we want to get in early. The faster we get into supporting development of projects, the better we can support, because we will provide operators with solutions that actually allow you to reduce cost. Because we found out that if you don't reach at that stage, maybe you take routes that will add costs later on. So we want to get in fast.
Yeah.
We are here to support. We've been in Nigeria also from the beginning, and we are changing our way of doing things. We have a reduced footprint, but we are actually developing a lot of partnerships through which we develop our product and services. So we are here to last, and we really want to be part of the solution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And
Oliver, let me just cast the last word here. I want to lay their concerns really. The future is deep water, Philip, okay? And we're doing a lot to unlock that. Just 2-3 weeks ago, I think in the UK, we met with EPC contractors that are looking to come back. You were in that meeting, right? We're trying to remove the clogs in the pipeline, and we're doing a lot to get them removed. And I do begin to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Okay, we've got ENI Zabazaba, we've got Bongo Southwest. The last time I worked on Bongo Southwest was in 2010 when I was planning GM. We've got a number of deep water opportunities that are coming through the pipeline, and we're going to start hearing news of all those very soon. So things like contractors coming back, that will be a big signal to let the industry know things are reviving again. Your deep water gas, stay tuned, you're going to get them. Oando is doing a lot with gas right down to your assets. Chevron is doing a lot with gas in the Niger Delta space. Things are working. We caught $3.5 billion just this year alone, and we've grown barrels. You would expect if you cut the dollars, the barrels will shrink. But we're seeing the opposite. We're cutting fats. We're being more nimble. We're being more, dynamic, so we can be able to do things with speed. So the industry is going to rock again. Let's just stay tuned and watch that space.
I love that. Let's leave it there. The industry's going to rock again. Lots to be excited about. We're going to grow the pie.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.